You wake up at 7. The alarm doesn't ring, it commands. Your body groans like it already knows how the day ends. You stumble into traffic with everyone else, inhaling exhaust like it's part of your wage package. And you call it normal because you've done it long enough to forget you're being trained. By the time you sit in your office, you're not working anymore. You're maintaining the illusion that you're safe because you have a paycheck. You listen to someone yell, someone micromanage, someone move deadlines like pieces on a board they never built. Then the clock finally flips to evening, and you collapse into your apartment or your rented room like a defeated animal. You open your phone, you watch other people's highlight reels. You feel envy, then you feel nothing, then you feel guilty for feeling anything at all. And then you sleep, and tomorrow you do it again. That's the trap most people never name out loud. The trap isn't just financial, it's psychological. It's a loop where you trade your future for temporary relief. Then you numb yourself so you can tolerate the next trade. Here's what this video is really about. It's not how to be rich. That phrase is a marketing slogan. It's about how wealth is being redefined around you and how income is being used as a sedative. It's about why your life can get harder while your salary gets bigger and why you end up working more hours, owing more money, and feeling less free, even when the world is supposedly more productive than ever. And yes, we're going to talk about money mechanisms. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the mind that makes those mechanisms work on you. Because the system doesn't just steal from you, it recruits you. Imagine a mouse running on a wheel. Its heart pounds. Its sweat soaks the fur. It moves fast enough to feel like a fighter, and when it stops, it is still in the same place. That's what your growth plan often becomes. You hustle, you upgrade, you buy, you pay, you repeat. You keep moving because stopping would force you to face the truth. You are not escaping. You are feeding the same machine. Now let's break down the first layer of the illusion. Income is not wealth. You think wealth is what your bank account shows. You think you're winning when numbers rise. But try this. Open your banking app. Don't stare at the balance like it's a trophy. Look at what it cost you to reach it. Look at the time you sold. Look at your health. Look at how often you ate alone. Look at how many nights you stared at the ceiling because your mind was buzzing with tasks you couldn't finish. Look at how many decisions you delayed because you were too tired to decide. Money is the exchange value of your labor, yes, but your labor is not infinite. Your health is not an adjustable subscription. Your attention is not a renewable resource. And when inflation, taxes, fees, and asset price increases quietly reshape the cost of living, your paycheck becomes a shrinking rental payment for your own life. Let's say the official numbers say inflation is low, the CPI looks fine, housing price indexes look up. But what matters is what your life actually costs. Rent, groceries, insurance, healthcare, transportation, school expenses for your kids, the things you can't opt out of. When people say prices go up, you hear an abstract statement, but psychologically, price increases are an emotional injury. They create chronic stress. They train you to feel behind. They make you interpret every month as a negotiation with disaster. That stress changes how you think. It makes risk feel dangerous and decisions feel urgent. Then you make choices that protect your immediate survival and sabotage your long-term freedom. And this is where the illusion becomes deadly. It works because your wage rises slower than your expenses. Think of it like timing. Money printed today doesn't wait for your next pay raise. It hits goods and assets fast. It climbs onto real estate. It embeds in healthcare contracts. It gets baked into insurance premiums. It moves through supply chains and service pricing like heat spreading in metal. But your salary, it moves like a tired animal. Your raises come once a year, sometimes even less often. Promotions come with politics. Job changes require courage and energy you often don't have. The gap between fast rising prices and slow rising wages is the silent tax on your effort. So you run harder. You work more hours. You pick up side gigs. You take on responsibilities that were never meant to be yours. And you feel proud because you think you're doing something. But your pride is being used as fuel. You're not just paying for inflation. You're paying for the timing gap. You're paying for the fact that the system extracts value before your life catches up. Now here's the second layer. Debt turns you into a permanent employee. Most people imagine debt as a tool. They think debt is a ladder. They think you climb upward by borrowing. But the reality is more brutal. In many modern economies, debt is a cage disguised as a key. Look at mortgages. The word itself comes from the idea of a commitment that stays until death. You sign, and then the contract stays in your life like a second shadow. People talk about owning a home, but during the years when you struggle the most, the house often belongs to the lender and everything that matters. Legal leverage, foreclosure threat, repayment structure, and your psychological dependence. In the beginning of a long loan, you pay mostly interest. That means the money you send doesn't build equity at the speed your imagination promised. It feeds the system. It transfers your monthly cash flow into someone else's balance sheet. So you become what you never wanted to be. You become a hostage to the calendar, not to your boss, not just to your profession, to the repayment date, to the must-pay rhythm. That repayment rhythm dictates your decisions. It decides whether you can switch jobs. It decides whether you can quit a toxic relationship. It decides whether you can take a creative risk. It decides whether you can go back to school. It decides whether you can start a business. People don't realize how often debt is the reason they stay miserable. They think they stay miserable because they should. They say things like, "This is just how life is," but it's debt doing the talking quietly. Debt makes choices feel impossible, which makes it feel like your personality is the limitation instead of your financial structure. Now, the third layer is the most uncomfortable truth. Wealth is being stored in assets while you store your time in the job. There's a reason societies chase real estate with such obsession. It's not just taste, it's strategy. Real estate becomes a storage vehicle for inflation. While necessities rise faster than your salary, asset prices can absorb the printed money without creating immediate chaos in the everyday food basket. So the system prefers where the money goes. When liquidity flows into land and property, it inflates the things that are harder for most people to access. It pushes wealth into those who already have leverage. Meanwhile, essential expenses keep rising and don't wait for your paycheck. This is why you feel like the world is moving forward while you are standing still. Not because you're lazy, because the distribution of money is changing faster than your ability to participate. And when you can't participate, you do what humans do. You blame yourself. You internalize failure. You interpret structural disadvantage as personal deficiency. Then you work harder, and the harder you work, the more the system proves you wrong about the cause. You become trapped inside your own narrative. Which brings us to the fourth layer. Banks are not lockers. They are engines, and you are not the owner of the engine. Most people believe that if they deposit money, the money sits safely. They imagine a vault. They imagine physical security. They imagine that their money is waiting. But modern fractional reserve systems work differently. The bank keeps a portion as reserves and lends the rest. That lending creates new deposits. Those deposits create more lending. In a few cycles, your original deposit becomes more credit in the system than the original cash you gave ever existed as. That's not a moral judgment. It's a mechanical description. But the psychological effect is huge. Because when you understand this, you realize your sense of security is partly faith. Your confidence depends on everyone not withdrawing at the same time. That means the system relies on trust, and trust can break instantly. When a real failure happens, it's not just a headline, it's a psychological collapse. People rush, they panic, they discover the truth they never thought they needed to know. The truth is simple. You are not storing money in the bank. You are extending credit to the bank, and you become an unsecured creditor if things fall apart. When that becomes real, you feel it in your body. Your stomach tightens, your hands get cold. You suddenly remember all those times you treated the money as untouchable. This is why bank safety is often an illusion maintained by collective calm. Calm is not protection. Calm is a condition. So if you want freedom, you have to stop treating money like a passive object and start treating it like a living asset with conditions attached. You need plans, you need structure, you need options. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what? What does any of this do for my daily life? Because most people hear economic concepts and they remain emotional spectators. They nod, they agree in theory. Then they go back to their rent and their credit card balances and their Netflix habits. The video is not here to give you anger. Anger is too easy. Anger feels powerful, but it usually burns you out. This is about strategy, and strategy starts with one decision. Stop confusing high income with safety. A person can earn a fortune and still be financially fragile. A person can make $50 million a month and still live like an employee with anxiety. Why? Because the consumer mindset steals their momentum. Consumerism is not just buying things, it's identity through spending. It's using purchases as emotional repairs. When income rises, consumerism rises in the same direction. That means your lifestyle inflates too, faster than your ability to build resilience. So your extra money doesn't become savings, it becomes upgrades with invisible costs. You move from cheap coffee to brand coffee. You go from a basic scooter to a nicer car payment. You leave renting and enter a more expensive mortgage with a longer repayment chain. You upgrade your apartment and then you realize you upgraded stress too. You traded affordability for status, and status has a subscription fee forever. Then you look around and you see everyone doing it. That's the final trick, social pressure. Social media doesn't just show other people's lives, it sells you the idea that happiness is proof. It makes you treat someone else's curated timeline as evidence that they're winning. And if you're not winning the same way, you assume something is wrong with you. So you chase the same symbols, you buy the same categories, you copy the same route, and while you copy, you forget to build. Now let's make this real with a micro story. You land a promotion, your salary jumps. For a month you feel relief, like you finally escaped. But within a quarter, your spending rises to match your new identity. You get used to the extra comfort. Then your landlord raises rent, or your insurance goes up, or your health expenses surprise you, or your car breaks. Life hits you with the kind of random costs that don't care about your intentions. You realize you didn't save. You normalized spending. You built no buffer. You increased no resilience. So the next challenge forces a new behavior. You work more, or you borrow, or you sell some future. You call it being busy, but it's actually being unprepared. That's what consumerism does. It trains you to become reactive instead of strategic. Step one of the escape plan is not to meditate. Step one is to become strategically poorer for a while. Read that again. Strategically poorer, not miserable, not sacrificing joy. Strategically poorer means you live below your income deliberately, with discipline that feels almost harsh at first. You stop upgrading because you want time, you want future safety, you want options. When you do this, savings stop being a vague concept. Savings become ammunition. They become the money you can use to resist coercion. Imagine this. Your boss asks you to do something unethical, or something illegal, or something that violates your principles. In that moment, you either comply because you need the paycheck, or you refuse because you have a runway. A runway changes who you are. It turns you from a dependent into a chooser. Your money buffer becomes a form of dignity. Now here's the brutal truth most people don't want. In wage labor, you can only scale time once. Then it runs out. You have 24 hours a day. Your lifetime has a limited number of years. You can't grow your time like you grow a portfolio, so wages have a ceiling. Even if you become high paid, your leverage still depends on your labor being physically available. Money you earn from selling hours is always an exchange. It's never permanent. It's always tied to your ability to keep showing up. Wealth is different. Wealth is ownership. Ownership is why some people don't have to grind the same way. Not because they are magically superior, but because their assets are producing returns while they rest. This is the dangerous thought that changes everything. Your goal isn't to earn more by force. Your goal is to redirect money so your money starts working, which means your investments should aim for assets that increase in value and/or produce cash flow. Let's talk about what that means in normal human language. If you only buy things that require ongoing employment to fund them, you remain employed forever. If you buy assets that pay you while you're sleeping, you slowly stop being a slave to your job. Dividends, rent, royalties, business equity, cash-generating properties, good structures. And no, you don't get there by buying a single speculative property and hoping. That's gambling with a nicer outfit. The difference between investing and speculating is clarity. It's cash flow projections. It's risk management. It's understanding how failure would happen before you invest. Now about risk. Most normal people invest like the crowd tells them to. They pick average options. They chase moderate returns with moderate security. They buy funds because they feel responsible. They buy insurance because they feel protected. They put money in places that feel safe, and then they lose the war to inflation anyway. That's the quiet tragedy. They don't get scammed. They just get outpaced. You want a plan that respects survivability and also respects opportunity. Think like this. You need two kinds of assets in your portfolio mindset. One part is survival, a strong base. Keep liquidity for short-term needs. Hold physical assets that preserve value better than paper in times of stress. Consider protective instruments that reduce catastrophic exposure. The point is simple. You must never become desperate. Desperation forces you to sell at the worst time. The other part is optionality, even if it's volatile. This is where high upside lives. But if you put too much into the volatile side, you risk losing your future. So you define it. You size it like an adult. You accept that some experiments fail, but you structure it so failure doesn't kill you. So instead of being trapped in the middle where you get eaten slowly, you build a portfolio that can survive storms and still capture upside when the world opens. Now let's shift to something that feels unrelated but isn't: skills. Because in an age of automation and artificial intelligence, average competence becomes fragile. AI can mimic routine. It can draft text. It can categorize data. It can automate customer support. It can do the first version of many tasks that used to require human time. That means the old path is dissolving. The path where you study one narrow specialization, get a certificate, and then work for a company